Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Larry Thomas. I'm the chair of the Fine Arts Department, and I'm also a facilitator with Artist Inc. And we have to make some thank yous. This program, I was looking at my email, and the first time I emailed Mira was on September 13th of 2012, so this is over a year in the making. God. And we've had, I don't know how many emails back and forth and conversations on the phone and such. But the program is brought to you by the Johnson County Community College Scholar in Residence program. The residence program started in 1996, and we've had dozens of scholars over the years from across the country and worldwide that bring artists and thinkers to our campus to share with our faculty, staff, students, and the general public. In this particular case, we've collaborated with Artist Inc. in the Refresh series, which is similar. I'm a facilitator with Artist Inc., and the Refresh series is kind of similar in that we bring thinkers from all over the country to come and share their expertise with us. If you're not familiar with the Artist Inc. program, I think we've done about 8 or 9 sessions now. It's a competitive process. We take 25 artists of all disciplines. As a matter of fact, we like a cross-discipline group. We usually get anywhere from 50 to 60 applicants, and we take 25. And it's an 8-week program. We do Monday nights for about 3 hours, and then we usually go to the bar afterwards and actually get work done and do the networking that we sort of profess. And that's kind of a great program. So if anybody's interested in that, Diane Scott downstairs or Corey Emig will be glad to talk to you more about that, or you can contact me. I kind of don't think of Artist Inc. without thinking of Diane Scott. She's been the designer and the program director for Artist Inc. from the start. She called me up one day and said, we'd kind of like you to come and do this. And I said, I'm not qualified to do that. And after a lunch that she bought me, I said, well, okay, maybe we'll do that. Artists will always go for a free lunch, and then we're hooked. And so the partners that help Artist Inc. run are Arts KC Regional Arts Council, the Charlotte Street Fund, and the Innovation Center at UMKC. And so Diane is also the director of professional development at UMKC Conservatory. That was an honor that she just got this last year. Her assistant, the program coordinator, Corey Emig, is also integral to this, and if it hadn't been for those two, it's been the thing about those two women is they're just extremely professional and organized, and it's been a joy to work with them. And so we've been able to, after a year, finally get everything kinked out, and we could bring Mira here. I don't know if you've read her book, The Memory Palace, but I highly recommend it. It will make you appreciate probably your childhood. It certainly did mine. So Mira Bartok is the founder of the artist blog Miras List. She speaks all over the country, helping artists find funding for their creative projects and helping emerging artists navigate the difficult world of publishing. She's a visual artist. She's drawn from the time she was very, very young. And she also is a commentator for the New England Public Radio and the author of The Memory Palace, Autobiography. Her work has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize, noted in the Best American Essays series, and has appeared in numerous literary journals, magazines, and anthologies. She has also published over 28 books for children in the U.S. and abroad. Mira's received grants and awards from many organizations for her artwork and her writing, including the United States Fulbright Program, the Pollock Krasner Foundation, the Vogelstein Foundation, and PEN American. She lives in Western Massachusetts, where she runs Miras List, a website that helps artists funding in residencies all over the world and north of radio. A multimedia collaborative and co-founded with her husband, Doug Plavin, who's a musician. She's also a literary, this could go on and on and on, but I'll cut it short because I want you to listen to Mira, not me. She's also a literary advisor for Transcultural Exchange, an international organization dedicated to artistic exchange across cultural boundaries and promoting opportunities for artists across disciplines. And all you have to do is Google Mira Bartok, and you'll find Mira's List and her website. Besides this program, there's also another program tomorrow evening at the Central Library in Kansas City, Missouri, at 14 West 10th. It'll be in the Hellsberg Auditorium, and that's going to be, I think, from, 5 to 7:40? 7:45, yeah. This is 6, yeah. One of the things I didn't write down, of course. Thank you. So I'm really pleased after a year of work to have Mira here, and I hope you'll join me in welcoming Mira Bartok.
Greetings. Can you hear me with this mic? Yes. Okay. Wow, it makes me sound so awesome. Let's just take a moment. Thank you, Larry. So I'd like to thank Larry Thomas, Diane Scott, this museum, Artists Inc., JCCC, and anyone else who helped bring me here, because it took a village, which actually we talk a little bit about later, because one of the problems in our down economy is that people don't collaborate enough, and this is you guys are a perfect example of partnering to bring me here. So this can be something to think about in terms of your own resourcefulness. If you want to do something, you need money for it, and think about ways to partner with an organization or some institution, another artist, et cetera. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. First, I want to get a sense of who you are, because that will help me figure out some things. So I'd like to know who in the audience is a visual artist of some kind. Okay. Any writers? Okay, some people do both. Filmmakers? Okay. Animators? Children's book author / illustrators? Somebody's hesitant. Somebody wants to be, but isn't sure. Yeah, raise your hand. Okay. How about musicians, composers? Okay. Dancers, choreographers, actors? Wow, you're all here. Okay. Director, anyone in the theater or performing arts? Wow, some of you do a lot of things. Yeah. Who does a lot of things? Okay, great. All right. All right, so has anyone here ever applied for a fellowship or a grant? Has anyone ever gotten one? Has anyone applied and not gotten one? Over and over again, okay. How about an artist residency, like at an art colony, or not an art retreat, but a competitive place where you actually go and do either you're totally fed and taken care of when you get a studio to work and it's amazing, or you are brought there because of your expertise and you're doing workshops, et cetera, and you also get to do your own work. So residencies, different kinds of residencies. So raise your hand. Okay, cool. Anyone ever do one overseas? All right. Anyone would like to do one overseas? How interesting. Okay. But you need money. So what we're going to do, I'm very informal, and I'm going to just talk about some things and about how to find money, how to find time, and some interesting places to work, to do your thing. And ask questions. If you have a question during my talk, feel free to raise your hand. And if it's something that I'm going to address later, then I'll tell you to be quiet and just sit and shut up. But we'll have time afterwards for Q&A, okay? So let me see what time it is. There's a lot of material to cover. Okay. All right. Most important question of all. Where are you? How do you locate yourself? Who here thinks they are an emerging artist? I'm going to throw some words out. Who would consider themselves mid-career? Who would consider themselves established, a master, great person of all things. Just, I don't need to know anything more. I am a master. Okay. All right. Who doesn't know? All right. This is a really important thing, and it may sound obvious. Oh, by the way, turn off your cell phones. And please don't text and all that stuff. Another important thing is paying attention. Okay. Okay, so know where you are. I ran this blog for several years, and now I mostly do it on Twitter and Facebook. So if any of you want to find out, get announcements for things, and thank you, and you're on Twitter, just look for Miras List, or you're on Facebook, look for Miras List. I post on there. So I was getting, when I was doing my blog up until recently, I would get, after about 5 years, I was getting about 100 emails a day. It got overwhelming. And one of the most common questions that I was asked was, I want to, and I'll talk about the two most common questions, but one of the questions I was asked over and over and over again was, I don't understand. I keep applying for grants, and I'm not getting them. And generally it was often someone in their 60s, late 50s, 60s, who had either not had an exhibit, not published, but they've been doing all this work for many, 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 many years. In fact, they might be really incredible at what they were doing. But they didn't have a public record to show that. They hadn't really put themselves out there. And the hardest thing it always has been is to write that little note back saying, well, guess what, you're emerging. But I'm 60. I've written books and books and books of poetry, or I've been painting for years, but you don't have any exhibits, or you never had a one-person show. So really knowing how to locate yourself is really important, because a lot of grants will say, this is for an emerging artist, or this is for a mid-career person. For instance, a friend of mine, she every year applies for a Guggenheim Fellowship, which is now, I think, about $40,000 a year. If you apply for a Guggenheim Fellowship and you're a writer, you really should have a couple well-received books out there. If you're an artist, you really should have had several shows, because it's kind of it's up there. Fellowship, a Googie's up there. This woman does, she does kind of calligraphy, which is not, and she's not in a gallery. She's never had a show in a gallery. She's been in 3 group shows for, in educational programs. But every year she keeps applying for a Guggenheim. And every year she gets disappointed, because she considers herself a master at what she does. And she is a master at what she does, but not in this realm. So she doesn't understand that it needs to be a good fit. It's like a marriage. A grant or fellowship or residency is kind of like dating. You need to find a good fit, and you need to locate yourself, okay? How do we know if we're mid-career? That's the tough one, because it's a little different with writing, and it's a little different than visual arts. I think that mid-career with visual arts, I would say you've had maybe at least one-person show. You've been in a bunch of group shows. Your work has been out there for a while, maybe 5 years at least. But for a writer, mid-career generally means at least 2 books published. And that takes a lot longer. So you visual artists are actually luckier than writers. And we can discuss that later if you have more questions about how to locate yourself, because sometimes it's a little fuzzy for certain disciplines. Okay, so knowing where you are, and knowing what is a good fit for you. The 2 most common questions I would get, and I still get these, is I just want to do my work, and I want a lot of money. And starting like next month, I'd like to work on my novel and finish it, or I would like to work on my show. I want to do a bunch of paintings, and can you find me money like starting in a couple months so I could just work for 6 months to a year? And I'm like, yeah, I would like that too. Let me know. So that's one thing. The other most common question I get is, I got a residency. I got a residency overseas. Let's say I got accepted to a residency in Italy. And it's starting in 4 months. But I just don't have the money to go, and it's for a month, and then how am I going to pay my bills? And okay, so travel funding to do this thing that's amazing. Both of those things obviously take money. And one of the problems that people do is that they think, okay, I want to go to Italy, and I need money to go there, so I'm going to just Google travel money for Italy. Oh, I guess there's nothing. Oh, well, I'll cancel my residency. Or I get people who write me who say, I am a collage artist, and I don't see any grants out there for collage artists, so I guess there's nothing for me. You guys are artists. You have to be resourceful, and you have to think in a non-linear way. Start with the specific when you do research, but really expand your idea of what you're looking for. And I'm going to get into that and give you some examples of how I found money in very weird ways, and so did other people. There is a lot of money out there, believe it or not. There are project completion grants. There are large fellowships. There are amazing fellowships in libraries. People don't even think of those. In fact, there's one I want to apply for in England where they give you money, they pay your travel, you live in a medieval library for a month, and do your work. I mean, how amazing is that? Would you know about that? It's in the UK. Anyone know about that? No. So there are these incredible fellowships out there that sometimes aren't even that publicized. Same thing with residencies. There's a great variety of residencies. There's McDowell, which is high on the food chain. You know, where you go, you can stay up to two months, and they feed you, and you don't pay for anything, and it's incredible. But you don't, back to know where you are, you don't want to apply to McDowell if you've maybe never had an art show before, okay? You might want to apply to a place that is more welcoming to emerging artists, like Ragdale in the Midwest, or some of the, so it's amazing, it's obvious, but read websites, read what they say, see who has stayed at those places, see who has gotten those grants, those fellowships. What are their credentials, okay? So know where you are in your career, do your homework. So I'm going to go over some little things that I think can apply to all these areas, grants, fellowships, and residencies. Some little suggestions about research and about writing applications and so on. But before I do, I just want to say it is a daunting process, especially certain applications. Has anyone here ever applied for Fulbright? Okay. It's a pain in the ass. Am I allowed to say that? But there are worse. There are worse. Anyone ever apply for a Creative Capital grant? Just the letter of inquiry is like, you're kidding. It's worse than a Fulbright. But boy, if you get it, you get up to $50,000 plus. They will pay for a residency. They are the gift that keeps on giving for all the arts. Creative Capital. I think it's creative-capital.org. They're amazing. They will also help mentor you in the process. Did you get it? I didn't either. But we'll keep trying, right? Okay. So some applications are really, horrendous. And what I suggest, does anyone here have trouble with process? I mean, if not creative process, but completing large goals. Yeah, okay. So one little thing I used to do, when I used to teach painting and different things like that, and I had small groups. This was, periodically I taught at a university, and then mostly I did this on my own. I started to realize that my absolutely most creative students, these are adults, intergenerational adults, they all were diagnosed with ADD at some point. Now, I see ADD as a difference, not a disorder. And so what I did was I started pairing them up and doing kind of peer coaching, where they would each have a large goal. Let's say a grant. You want to write a grant. It's huge. There's all kinds of things you need to get together. There's all the material. There's the application. There's all this stuff. I'd have them each kind of coach each other, and they'd each have to come up with one task each week, very simple, and plan ahead, and at the end of several weeks, voila. They were accountable to someone, so they met half an hour each, so an hour a week. They met or talked on the phone, and they mapped out the different things they had to do. If you're working on a huge, huge application, I suggest having someone help you with it if it's a problem for you. Use a peer to help coach you and help them out, because it's sometimes really, really kind of overwhelming to do a large application. Okay, in my day, in the Jurassic period, the only way to find out about a grant or a fellowship or a residency was to go to a grant library in a major city, a big city, or have a university or college that had some grant books in their library. Now, there's too much information. How the hell do you go through it? It's overwhelming. Even sites like NYFA, which is a great site, New York Foundation for the Arts, nyfa.org. It's overwhelming. There's all this information coming at you. So that's kind of why I started Miras List. I consider myself the filtering spleen of the grant world. So I started my blog in 2008 during the crash, and what I learned from that time was there's a lot of information out there, but the best way to get it is to go to certain motherships first. So right now I'm going to give you my list of the motherships. And then we're going to go through application stuff and other things. All right. Some of the best sites, I think, for residencies, if you want to apply for residency. So at an art colony or a great variety of residencies all over the world, the best places are the following: resartis.org, resartis.org. And you'll find all this I think you'll find most of these on my blog on Miras List, miraslist.com, no apostrophe on the sidebar, but a couple of these are missing. So resartis.org, transartists.org, Alliance of Artists Communities.org. These are places you can tailor, you can look, I'm looking for printmaking, or I'm looking for, I want to go to Egypt. You can just look at certain things. All right, a new one, which is really, a couple new ones that, have come out the last couple years, which are great. Residencyunlimited.org is great. And then this one is out of the UK, which is terrific. And they post stuff about grants and fellowships too, and some pretty high-paying ones as well. ReTitle.com. It's re-title.com. They're out of the UK, and you can get on their list, and all these are for free. A great one out of Canada is that posts fellowships, grants, and residencies is Art Rubicon, R-U-B-I-C-O-N. I can't remember if I think it's .org, but I'm not sure. So just Art Rubicon, you'll find them. R-U-B-I-C-O-N. And, this one, it says, they say it's a women's organization, but anyone can look. The material on there is not all for women. Womenarts.org. They tend to really focus a little bit more on the performing arts, on playwriting, acting, choreography, and filmmaking, but they also post other kinds of funding, residencies, etc. And there are other ones. If you're a writer, look at PEN American, look at poetsandwriters.org, pw.org. The best one for writers, I think, is PEN American. They have a great grant database. And for children's book authors, illustrators, scbwi.org is the mother organization. Very little out there for children's book authors and illustrators. So that's the bad news, but you can apply, you can be creative and look up grants for something else. Okay, here are some things to know. Yes?
What was that last one?
S as in Sam, cbwi.org. Everything in the world you ever want to know about children's books is there, as well as I think it's underdown.org. It's Harold Underdown's website, and that, if for anyone interested in children's book writing, illustrating, he just knows everything. Okay. So some things that I think that are really important. Number one, has anyone here seen that great commencement speech that Neil Gaiman gave? Anyone? You know, I can't remember where he gave it, but it's, bottom line, make good art. He says this over and over again. It sounds obvious, but make good art. Make the best art you can, whatever it is. And when you send whatever it is out to be considered for a grant, a fellowship, or residency, make it your absolute best. It is better to send, if the application says up to 15 slides, it's better to send 10 very consistent, strong pieces, photographed really well, than to send 15 of a kind of mishmash of things. So it's obvious, but do your best work, and that's what you want to send, whatever it is. Plan ahead. Plan ahead. Large fellowships, grants, they're like, 6 months to a year sometimes beforehand. So if you've got a show coming up and, it's slated for January 2015, you should have been looking for money way back, like a year before, 9 months before, especially for a larger grant. Now, there are these amazing little things that pop up, like the Awesome Foundation. Anyone hear that? Awesome Foundation, you write a letter. Every month they accept letters. You tell them of your project, and if they think it's awesome, they'll give you $1,000. So there are these strange little things like that. But in general, plan ahead. Okay. Back to being nonlinear. This is, I think, finding money to travel and finding large chunks of money to do your work are the hardest things to look for, and it's what people want the most. So you go to the motherships. You go to these places. You look up whatever it is. Painting fellowship, artist fellowship. You start with the basics. And you also, if you want to travel, you Google, the name of the country, et cetera. And then you start being a little creative here. Okay, who am I? What makes up who I am? Okay, I'm a woman. I have a disability. I'm half Jewish, whatever. I start to think of the things that make up what I do. Sometimes I do strange things that connect art and science. Okay, that's one thing. So start thinking about who you are. You would be amazed at the strange kinds of grants that come up. I learned this in graduate school at the Art Institute of Chicago, where this friend of mine, she was a graduate student there, she got a completely free ride. And I'm like, how the hell did you get that? She said, I found out of this obscure little scholarship. If you ever went to a Catholic school, they gave you a free ride. Somebody gave an endowment. I said, Barb, you're Jewish. And she said, I know, I took a French class at Loyola once. She got a free ride. I'm like, I gotta try that. There was a grant, there was a scholarship they offered for anyone with any kind of visual impairment, because some guy had a daughter who was blind and always wanted to paint, and she lost her vision. Okay? So I learned a lesson, I learned this after I left, when I was leaving school. I realized, oh, yeah, I had taken an Italian class at a Catholic school. I could have saved a lot of money. So think about who you are, what makes up who you are. Not just your discipline, not just that you're a fiber artist or that you're a tuba player or whatever. Think about what makes up who you are. So think non-linearly. All right. The other thing, look, if you're trying to do something, let's say you want to go to where I've spent my Fulbright. I went to Norway, okay? But I went to the north part of Norway where it's 50 below, okay? Insane. So nobody wanted to go there, so they gave me a Fulbright. So it's not quite enough. What Fulbrights give you isn't quite enough, and there are different kinds of Fulbrights. So if you have any questions about Fulbrights a little bit later, ask me. There are different kinds of Fulbrights. So it's not quite enough what they give you for Fulbright sometimes, depending on the country. So I started doing research, and I found out there's something called the American Scandinavian Foundation. And there is the Sons of Norway Foundation. There are these friendship societies. Japan has some with America. I think it's like the Japan-American Friendship Society. So if you want to go overseas and you can't find the money to do it, Google the country and the American blah 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 Friendship Society. Go look up the consulates and almost every consulate in the United States from another international consulate has a cultural institute attached to it. I wanted to go study Italian for a month in Florence once, but I didn't have the money. So I thought, what the hell? This cultural institute in Chicago, Italian Cultural Institute, they might know about money. So I went there and I said, do you guys have any language scholarships? And they go, yeah, we do. Nobody, we don't publicize it. I got a free ride. I studied Italian in Italy for a month because I asked. There are things out there that people don't even publicize. For instance, if you're a writer and you want to be in France for 1 to 6 months, there are all kinds of residencies in France that are not even listed on these motherships. I found a whole bunch on a website that was it was a French site. So where, if you've published a book and they like your work, they give you a place to live for 6 months. And I mean, it's incredible. So there are opportunities out there. And so don't stop at the front door. You have to go in sideways or in the back door sometimes and not get discouraged. Okay. So, applications. And this goes for anything. This goes for grants or fellowships or anything. Before I go into this, questions. Any questions right now? Okay. All right. So, applications. You've got this application, and they say, this is the one that always gets. Have you ever had this where they ask you this question, and you just are sweating to death over this question? Are you applying for any other grants to help fund your project? It's like you're put in the hot seat. If I say yes, then they think, oh, she doesn't need money, or she's greedy. If I say no, maybe that's not good either. Anyone ever come across that question? The answer is say yes. Because it's very important to show that you're resourceful. An institution doesn't want to feel like they're the only ones funding you, and they want to know that you really, really have the drive, that you're going to do whatever it takes. You're going to apply for everything, okay? So that answer is yes. I can't tell you how many times I slaved over that stupid question. Okay. So, important things. You want to have your ammo ready. When you apply, you want to have a really good body of work. You want to have a good set of slides. You want to have a really great manuscript. Go over it over and over again. Make sure it's just perfect. Show it to somebody, someone you trust. Get feedback. Okay. When they ask you in some of these applications, now some things are really, really easy. For instance, most states there are regional grants, state grants. I don't know how Missouri and Kansas are with this. But we, like Massachusetts, so that sucks, okay. Yeah, yeah. So Massachusetts, they give $7,500 for artists, and you don't have to be really. It's all anonymous, like the NEA. The NEA, I think, mostly goes for writers now. Now it's $10,000 they give, and so the application for state grants actually is pretty simple. But some of these grants are really and fellowship applications are pretty labor intensive. And sometimes they ask you a series of questions to put in your to answer these questions, to put in your cover letter or to put in your application, an essay. For instance, the Fulbright, you need to write an essay. A little tip, answer these things in the order that they are asking. They are getting sometimes thousands of applications. So write in the order. Write whatever it is in the order that they're asking. 2, language. Do not use passive language. Do not say things like, and I see this a lot because I've been on the other side of things where I've been on committees judging applications. Don't say things like, if I'm given the chance to, if I'm given this project completion grant, I hope to accomplish X, Y, and Z. I will try to do it. nobody wants to know if we're going to hope or try. They want to know you're going to do it. So that's really important. Don't sound pathetic, okay? And don't sound whiny. I get so many letters from people who say, they just sound so desperate. Even if you're applying, there are emergency grants out there. So these are the grants. Some of these are for people who are really desperate. You know, they lost their home in Katrina. They just had a, horrible natural disaster or financial disaster or physical disaster. And still, you don't want to sound desperate. You want to sound resourceful. You don't want to whine. And you want to sound like you're really going to do what you're going to do. Okay? Another thing that I see, I've seen in Fulbright applications and other applications, is that people think that if I sound like I'm going to do a hell of a lot more than I can actually do, I'm going to get that grant. That's really a no-no. Really think about what can you accomplish in the period of time you're given. Don't overblow, just don't exaggerate. Because people really do look at that. They'll look at that, really? And she's going to be there a month at this residency, and she's going to write a novel in a month? They're not going to take you seriously, okay? So be honest, be humble, but be direct, okay? All right, recommendation letters. You hate to ask anything from anyone. It's hard. It's hard to ask people who are really, really busy, former professors, colleagues, to write recommendation letters. No one likes to ask for them. Most people don't like to write them. So the thing is, ask way in advance. Don't ask the week before a grant is due, unless something just came up, you have a really great relationship with that person, and they will forgive you. Okay? Ask way in advance. And a thank you note, an actual little card is actually, that actually goes a long way. Be great. So be grateful. Show gratitude. I think it goes a long way in your career. So let me see what else here. Okay. All right. Another thing that sounds obvious, but you can't believe how many times people don't do this. Follow the guidelines. Really, follow the guidelines. Look at what their website says. Really, if you're going to spend a ton of time making great art, spend at least a little part of that taking some of this seriously. So let me tell you, when I was, let's see, this is 99, I had a really bad car accident. And temporarily, I lost my ability to remember things, read and write, all kinds of things, okay? I was one of those people who didn't have disability insurance. I didn't have a regular job. I was an artist. I did freelance work. Guess what? I lost it all overnight. And fortunately, I had a whole history of being an exhibiting artist as well as published writer. But not like high in the food chain author, okay? A few essays, a few stories, just a little bit, and some kids' books, which for some reason, unfortunately, the adult literary world doesn't always take seriously, which is really bogus, but it's true. So a friend of mine helped me apply for some grants. It took, even 6 months after my accident, it would take me about 3 days to compose a short letter, okay? And now, sometimes that's how long it takes for a lot of people, but for me, that would be a 15-minute job. So in the first 4 to 5 years after my accident, I got about $30,000 a year in grants, which is astounding. And I got help writing those. I got help researching those from friends, which is one of the reasons why I started this blog during the crash. So it's really, really important to follow the guideline. All these things I'm saying, follow the guidelines, be resourceful, be grateful, show appreciation for people helping you, all those things. So let me think what else I want to tell you. Okay, getting close to, all right. Rejection. I'm going to talk, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about some innovative ways to fund your projects. There's something I call the successful failure. Sometimes there are unsuccessful failures. I've had enough of those. But sometimes you apply for something, and sometimes you apply for the same. Like I've applied, I was just on a panel with actually Linda Leighton from, which is a great, what's her name of her organization?
Light International Artist Exchange Program.
It's through the Kansas City. So she has one of the few organizations that actually helps fund travel for artists. I was on a panel with her and some other people, and one of the people on the panel was from the Massachusetts Cultural Council for the Arts. And I told him, I said, I've applied for the MCC grant 15 years in a row and never gotten it. And maybe I never will, but I've gotten a couple amazing things from that experience. The best was one of the judges saw I submitted something that was for writing, but it had images in it. And one of the judges asked for permission to connect with me after I was rejected. And he's an author and a very well-published author, and wanted to ask if he could send some of my images to his publisher to do book covers. So that was like, I applied for this thing for writing and got this thing for visual arts. Who knew? I've submitted to other organizations, and people on those panels, judging those committees, have asked me then to submit something for a literary magazine. So, if you put your stuff out there, you never know what's going to happen. People see you, and then sometimes you get something the next time around, okay? So don't get too discouraged. I mean, I've had years of rejection. And I keep trying. It's pathetic. So I want to tell you about just a few little weird places that give money and possibilities, opportunities. But before I do, I want to talk about crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. Has anyone here ever done a Kickstarter, Indiegogo campaign? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, these websites like USA Projects, Indiegogo, Kickstarter, etc. Basically, you come up with an idea. I want to, and I actually might do something for one of my next books. I'm thinking of doing one. I have this project I want to do. And so I make a little video, hopefully engaging, not too long, not too obnoxious, well done. And I post it on their site, asking people to donate. And I come up with little gifts to give people. If they donate this much, they get this little gift, they get this much, so that I can work, after my campaign is like, maybe it's going to be a month and a half, 2 months. Hopefully I'll get the money I requested, okay? It's a lot of work in a short period of time, but sometimes people can, I knew 2 musicians who got $15,000 to go to Ethiopia to collect traditional music. I knew someone who got $30,000 to work on their documentary film. So sometimes these campaigns could be really successful. And you're also connecting with community. I give to those projects all the time, and this is one of the wonderful things about, that's come out of this horrible economy we have, is that people are, yes, a lot of grant foundations and so on have shut down, but then people are doing things like this. So the best campaigns, if you go the crowdfunding route, are ones where you already have an audience. You've got a blog, you have 5 million friends on Facebook, your people follow you on Twitter, a couple thousand people follow you on Twitter. If no one knows who you are, or you have a great exhibition record, or you've published here and there, you're going to be more successful, because if no one knows who you are, why would they fund you? So you kind of have to have a little bit of following. You also need to it's just like asking for grant funding. You need to be realistic, okay? And not greedy. How much do you ask for a grant? If you can ask for up to $5,000, well, think about it. Do you need all the $5,000? Don't undersell yourself, don't oversell yourself. The same thing is for a Kickstarter campaign or something. So, like, I have a friend who, she had no followers, she had never really been published. She wanted to work on some kind of journalism project. She had maybe 1 article published somewhere. And she asked for like $40,000 and did this really bad video. It was a little selfie, and it was just like, that's so sad. She got like $200 from her friends. That's not the way to go, okay? But some can be really, really, if you really want to go somewhere, or you really want to, spend the next 6 months doing your work, and you feel like you've got a following, however through a blog or through your shows, I say go for it, or you're doing a project that's a little unusual and hard to fund. I highly support those things. And then once again, be nonlinear. There's a guy I know who's he's an editor and author, and he came up with this project called Significant Objects, where he took 100 weird little objects, like a rubber ducky, and like weird little objects. He sold them on eBay. He had 100 writers each write a story that related to that object. People bid on eBay for the object and the story. And with that money, he made enough to publish this incredibly beautiful book with stories and photographs of these weird little objects. And he got on National Public Radio, and it's selling really well. So he decided to really play with that crowdfunding project. And make art out of it, essentially. Okay. I want to just throw out some weird little places that you might not know about, okay? Anyone here a parent of a small children? Okay. Not that much out there for parents with kids who want to do their thing, okay? But the Parentis Sustainable Arts for Parents grant, Parentis, is one of those weird little things that's come out of the, it's sort of sprang forth from the down economy. And they give, I think, about $6,000 in grants. Creative Capital, once again, really check them out. I know that the application is a bitch, but it's really worth it. And I know people who have gotten them after applying 1 or 2 times. RoJo, A Room of Our Own Foundation. This is an organization for women where they give you $50,000, and they actually prefer if you've it's for women, have not published much at all. AROHO, AROHO.org. And one of the people, I was a runner-up one year, and one of the people who won it, who went on to, you're basically given that to write your book. She was up against Rebecca Skloot, the woman who wrote the that bestseller about Henrietta. That it's just still on the bestseller list. She was up against a lot of people, and this woman had only published one tiny essay, and she got this fellowship. So there are these weird things out there. All kinds of eco-residencies and grants popping up, and residencies in national parks all over the place. Haven Foundation. Anyone hear of the Haven Foundation? Stephen King had a pretty bad, he had the thing that I have, TBI, traumatic brain injury, which is why sometimes I ramble and go off topic. But at least I'm here. Anyway, Stephen King had a horrible brain injury, and he decided to start a foundation to help people who had experienced some kind of financial, physical loss. J.K. Rowling also got on board. And so what they do is if you've made at least a third of your income for 3 years in a row, a third of your income from your art, whatever art that is, you can, even if you're an editor or you're an illustrator, things that aren't ever, nobody gives money to those great people. They will, if they accept your, if they believe you, they believe in you, they'll give you up to $25,000 a year, up to 4 years, to sort of help you get back on your feet. Okay. So there are all kinds of things out there that exist, and so I want to just go over a few, reiterate a couple things. Yes. Oh, sorry, Haven Foundation. And there is another Haven Foundation. There's another Haven Foundation. It's like something else. So just when you go on the website, just Google it, and you'll I think it's like hvf.org or something. I'm not sure. Just Google it, and you'll see. It'll be really clear that it's not some like weird business. It's just it's a place to get money. An eco-residency, good question. So a residency where, a friend of mine is now running one that that is out in the Bay Area near Point Reyes, which is an incredible place. They accept, I think, artists too, but definitely writers. I can't remember what disciplines, it might be all disciplines. For people who do ecological art in some way, ecological writing. And there are some place, like another great place is Sitka. There's a Sitka residency in Alaska, but there's also one in Oregon. I can't remember exactly the town. SITKA. And they have printmaking facilities, they have facilities for other arts, they have writers can stay there, all kinds of disciplines. But the focus is you want to work with, you want your project to have something to do with that place or ecology in some way. Okay, yes?
Yeah, I work with a lot of recycled materials. I think that would fit in what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Is there anything specifically for someone doing that kind of work?
Actually, there is, and for the life of me, I can't remember where it is, but there actually is a place that does that is.
The one in the Bay Area that you are at the landfill?
Oh, sorry. The one in No, yeah, that one might be. There's one that deals with a landfill in the Bay Area. I can't remember what it is. I forgot, but you reminded me. I forgot to give you the name of that other residency at Point Reyes, which is called, I can't remember what it is. It might come to me. It's, yeah, if you go to miraslist.com, MIRASLIST.com, and you go on the right-hand side, there is, most of those links are still good, because there are some that I'm just connecting you with different databases, and most of those are still active. There are also labels. So you can go, and even though some of those labels connect to deadlines for things that have passed, a lot of those organizations are still active. Something I wanted to say before we do Q&A. Oh, yeah. Another thing you might want to know about, an organization that I work for is called Transcultural Exchange, transculturalexchange.org. They also have a blog that announces various things, more on the visual arts end, less on writers, and but more, painting, drawing, filmmaking, et cetera. What we do every other year, so we just had a conference this year, is there's a conference in Boston. So the next one will be 2015. It's small, they offer scholarships. Basically, every person who runs residencies over the world, the people who run them are actually at that conference. They do critiques. You can meet for instance, you can meet someone, you can set up an appointment with someone who runs a residency in Romania and walk out of there with a residency for the following year. It's really pretty amazing. They also have, generally, we have people from Fulbright or the Art and Embassy program, where people can get their work, their artwork into embassies all over the world. There are a lot of different programs that are represented at this conference, and it's a pretty great conference. And so you meet people from all over the world who run programs and who offer money as well as a place to work. Okay. So before we do Q&A, I want to just tell you where to find me. Okay. So miraslist.com. I haven't been posting there in the last few months because I've been doing it mostly on Twitter and on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, just do a search for Miras List, and you'll find me and like me, and then you'll get my feed. All of that stuff, or a lot of what I post there, automatically goes to Twitter. So if you're on Twitter, if you're insane enough to do that, do a search for Miras List, and I'm on Twitter. And I also post what other people post, so I'm also posting a lot of stuff at Art Rubicon and ReTitle. For residencies, I really, if you're dying to go around the world or in the United States and really explore what places are out there that you can just do your work and not have to pay for it and get 3 square meals a day and sometimes a stipend, I highly suggest getting on the subscribe to for free to Residency, Unlimited, and ReTitle is great, the ones I mentioned before. Okay? All right, let me just see what the time is. Okay. All right. All right, I'd like to open this up for questions. And if you have a scenario, like I do this and I'd like to go do this or get money to do this, ask me. Yes.
A statement and a question. The statement on crowdsourced funding.
Okay.
I went to a class on that at Kaufman. Everybody around here should know about Kaufman. And so then, and they did a class on it. Then they also had one of those guys who has a website who does like 30% of it or whatever, a huge amount, you know, like 100 million or so. I'm not exaggerating. And he did a luncheon. So I also went to luncheon, which they also recorded. So I assume it, and I think I'm correct, you know, 99% correct, that if you go to Kaufman, then you will find out that they recorded this information and that you can view it on crowdsourced funding.
That's great. What is the, did you say Kaufman?
Kaufman, everybody here should know this, but Kaufman. It's indigenous to this area.
Kaufman.
Ufman. Yeah, and they did.
Is it Kaufman.com?
Foundation, Kaufman Foundation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a foundation. So.
Okay, thank you. That's great. Because it's, you know, it's important to, once again, it's like dating, find the right fit, because some of, like Kickstarter, if you can't raise your money, if not enough people sign on and, you know, donate, you don't get anything, even if you've gotten like $1 under what your goal was. It's very frustrating. But Indiegogo, they let you keep at least, I think, a percentage of it, or maybe they let you keep whatever you've made so far. I can't remember. So there are they might, maybe they take a larger percentage, but you get to keep everything. I can't remember. There are differences. So what's your question?
Yeah, but he explains this, and I think it was
Okay.
down in Indiegogo.
Okay.
Yeah, and he explains all that about how much you get to keep and
Great.
how much of you have to reserve for them. I mean, they have to make some money to
Okay.
do that. So yeah, you're 100% accurate and right on that. Now, my question is, you mentioned about recommendation letters. Would you subscribe to you actually writing the letter, then say, will you sign the letter? Because nobody likes to write. I mean, if
No.
they're okay, I'm asking.
No, but you bring up a really important point. Some people ask people to write recommendational letters for them, and they don't give the person any information.
Yeah.
And it's really important to give the person a very good description of what you want to accomplish. And even if you think they know you, like say you had them in a, you know, you took a couple workshops with them or something, and you know each other socially, they might not know your whole history and your accomplishments and how amazing you are. So you want to give them a CV. You know, you want to give them your list of everything, and you want to give them a project description, and if there's anything you want to say, like, you know, I know this organization really is, they tend to only, or they tend to give most of their, they tend to give most of their grants to these kind of people. Well, guess what? I am this kind of person. You might not know I'm this kind of, you know. So really give your recommendation people some fodder to work with, okay? But don't write it yourself. I mean, I tell you, we can usually tell. Yes.
How do you, or when do you meet an agent?
How do you meet an agent?
When do you meet one, how do you not sign?
Are you coming to my thing tomorrow?
I don't even heard that now.
Pardon me?
I don't really love it.
Okay, that's I'm going to cover that. Basically, in a nutshell, the short version is there are very different ways, and one way is to meet, and this is the same thing with gallery people. I mean, go put yourself out there. Go to conferences, like places like Bread Loaf, if you can get into Bread Loaf, Stone Coast. Some local places have, some regional arts organizations have maybe like a weekend writers professional conference, and it's really inexpensive, and they have agents there. So through things like conferences, going to art colonies and residencies and connecting with other writers who, and you're talking about writing. Right, okay, because sometimes people say an agent or a rep for either in terms of gallery work. I had two agents. My first agent I got from being a runner-up for that big grant for Fellowship for Women, and they flew me to Ghost Ranch, New Mexico to do a reading. And because I was in this public sphere and an agent heard me, she offered to represent me on the spot. She turned out to be the wrong person for me, but I was like, really, you want to represent me? I'll do anything. So she was, that's one thing you actually don't want to do, is just go with anybody. Look at books that people are writing that you feel a really great kinship toward, and see who's representing them. And then go on those websites and see if they accept unsolicited, queries. Ask every writer you know. A lot of agencies might say we don't accept unsolicited queries, but if it's somebody who knows somebody, that's always great. And then really there are also some great poets and writers. If you're a writer and you don't have a subscription to Poets and Writers, boo on you. You really should. Go to pw.org, and they have incredible stuff you can download. They have a great agent database, and they've got all kinds of great materials. There's also the Writer's Digest series that has, it's like a huge thing, everything you ever wanted to know about agents. Everything, it's like the writer's guide to blah, blah, blah. Okay? So many. Okay, first you. I will get to you. Yes.
I guess I declare myself as an emerging artist and have no idea where to start. So how do I even start getting my art out there so I can apply for scholarship?
Have you ever had a show or been in a show?
No, I've just started taking classes. I've always wanted to be an artist. I never actually started doing anything about it until I got to college. So.
Okay, number one, you want a body of work. So some of my biggest mistakes, I won't tell you all of them, I'll tell you one. But you can easily apply this to visual art. The very first place I ever sent a story out was the New Yorker. Duh. They don't even look at you unless you have an agent or you've been on the bestseller list. I mean, double duh. But I was dating a very uninformed poet at the time who said, wow, this is awesome. Send it to the New Yorker. Go for the top. So I sent my little story to the New Yorker. It was the only story I had ever written that actually was finished. Okay? And surprisingly, I got a letter back, handwritten, that said, sorry, this is not right for us, but please send us more work in the future. I had no more work. I had nothing. It was really pathetic. So do your work, if you're gonna apply for someplace like a residency or grant, have 15, random number, have 10 to 20 solid pieces that really look good and consistent. And then you're ready to send something out and start getting your work out in group shows. So that's number one. Do the work, do great work, and have your stuff out there. And then if you have that stuff and you have some things like say 10 pieces you really like, apply to a place. I did this. I had barely shown. I had only shown in a couple very small regional shows, like regional, like local shows. I applied to a local arts grant to for money to photograph those pieces. I got $1,000, and then I could photograph them. I could hire somebody to do really professional photographs. And then with that money, I applied to a printmaking residency somewhere in Washington State and I had I just thought, okay, now I have the work, I'm going to apply to that, and I got it. And through that, I met other people who, so it's grants beget grants, residencies beget residencies. So it's does that help you out a little bit? Okay. So you want to do the work, put yourself out there, and connect with people, like something like this, or go to professional weekend. There are different things. Two people here who might, know of this kind of thing. Pick their brains afterwards about what's available locally. Okay? Yes, back there.
Yeah, you mentioned supplementary funding for Fulbright.
Pardon me?
You mentioned supplementary funding for Fulbright.
Yes.
Were you going to address that?
It really depends on the country. So one of the places I'd start to look, transartists.org is a website that has, mostly gives you opportunities, deadlines for residencies, but they also have a little link for funding, and they have a list. It's sort of a good starting place. So they have a list of places that possibly might be good connections to fund certain projects overseas. Another place to look is, like I said, any kind of friendship society. Think about where you live. Is there any kind of sister city relationship to another country? There are different organizations that like I know that I think it's the Asian. Like think about what it is. The Asian community actually has quite a few things for various residencies or funding, things overseas in Asian communities. There's a lot I've seen for the Balkan states. You kind of have to do some hard research. And also, listen, people, if you're willing to get money in weird ways, I know a friend of mine, she's an artist and a science, she does science too. She couldn't decide between those two fields. And she does a lot of ecological art. And she really wanted to do this thing called Project Seahorse, where you go to the Philippines and you help count seahorses under the sea. Okay? And it's a volunteer thing, but it costs a lot of money. She needed money to go to Philippines, she needed diving equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So she went around to different places. She went to a place that sells scuba diving equipment. She went to, she contacted her alumni association where she went to college. She contacted different organizations. She felt, who am I connected with? And what is in my community? And she also contacted a handful of some of her friends and said, listen, if you help me go photograph and document and count these seahorses, I will come back and give you a piece of art. And she got the money. And she spent, 2 months under the sea with waterproof sketchbook. It was bizarre, and waterproof camera. So she funded her project. So anything's really possible if you're willing to be inventive. You really want to go somewhere. Yes.
Are you finding that some of the categories are shifting a little bit? And my own interest in that is, as a multidisciplinary artist,
Yes.
How to best apply for things, because sometimes what I'm making involves a variety of things. When I'm writing, there's a video with explanation.
I have come across this problem because it seems like everything I write now has pictures. For instance, I'm working on a novel, and there are graphic novel sections without words, but I want to apply for writing grants. And some of the more established ones, they say nothing about pictures. I ran into this problem the last time I applied for the Mass Cultural Council, and I contacted them. There are humans working at these places, even Fulbright. they're humans. And so I said, hey, can I submit something with pictures? They were like, oh, we never had that question before. Why, yes, go ahead. Let's see what that looks like. So I have definitely seen more cross-disciplinary things going on. And in fact, there are some residencies that are specifically for people who like do cross-disciplinary things with social media and a lot more stuff for digital stuff. I mean, it's kind of overwhelming. There's so much. I would go, so go to my blog, miraslist.com, and look under things like, it all comes down to what do you search for? So multidisciplinary, multimedia, cross-discipline, those keywords, and do searches. And do the same, in places like NEFA, there is a lot more out there. Some of the more established, older institutions, they might not know what to do with you. But you know what? Ask them. Say, I do this, and it doesn't quite fit a category. And so I've had that problem too, where I'm working on I'm off and on, I've been working on a feature-length radio documentary that also involves a gallery installation. It's kind of a weird project. And Creative Capital was the one. Actually, Creative Capital is the perfect place for you because they give a lot of money and they really their focus is on people doing really innovative things, and they really like cross-disciplinary projects. And ask those, so if you find an organization like that, ask them what other organizations are like you. Yeah, let's see, I'll come back to you. There's somebody way back there who hasn't asked. Yes, you.
Again, cross-disciplinary, and so the fields are in like built environment education,
Wait. Speak up a little bit.
Sorry, yes, cross-disciplinary. And the fields in which I've worked have been, education, historic preservation, and architecture, undergrad in art history. And so, you're working on all these different things, but if what you're trying to look at is a city and a place at a time, because these people are going to be gone. And so, in a way, you're thinking long-reaching, that, you want to have this archives no matter what. So you want to have Voices in Time come out, record all the architects talking about the River Key. But the most important thing, I would think, when you're first saying, I don't want to embarrass myself, is you're getting the structure, you're getting one like prototype in a can. But at what level? Because I know you don't want to do it on an iPhone, but you can't, you know what I mean? At what level? Like if you're doing your little mini PBS in my own head thing, and telling a story, like it's an urban planning story about a city, about a specific place, because all these small cities started in the 70s. There were people in the 70s that were getting together and saying.
So is this a project you're working on?
No, this is something that is like a lifelong thing that you, all of a sudden you're at a point in life when you can say, okay, it's time, this. But when you're doing that first little video, I mean, you're applying for the grant to say, what I don't ever know is, because it's like your whole life is what you're working on in a way, but when you're really saying, no, we got to get these people before they're dead, tell them the story in a good way that people want to look at it and see it.
Okay, are you asking her what do you need
the organizations that you were saying on yours.
It sounds like you're asking, are you asking like, can you just have photographs and write what you want to say? Or
how dynamic, you said do the best art, yeah, how dynamic does your thing that you submit, and how good does it have to be? Because sometimes we wait our whole life to say, well, it's just not good enough.
But I also think that would, it sounds like she's asking you, like, can I use an iPhone video to upload to, like, Kickstarter or whatever, or like.
And put them all in iMovie, yeah.
I think it really, it goes back to decide what you want to do.
Yeah,
and what are you talking about specifically a crowdfunding campaign, or are you talking about any kind of thing you're applying to?
I've done a lot of oral storytelling out in rural Kansas and collected a lot of oral history. And so I think what it is like when you say, I want all the architects that worked in the River Key in the 1978 era, I don't want to do that panel, tell the story, write the script. In a way, that's a whole assembly. But I think what you could do is do many parts of it on an iPhone, put it all together in iMovie, and submit it, and then you still do your written structure.
If you're asking if you can get grants money to do what you're asking to do.
Well, I don't have a chance to do to show them.
If you're asking if you're trying to get money, I think it depends on who you're trying to get money from.
Yes.
Okay.
Because some organizations will not look at videos, and
Right.
some organizations will only read things. You know?
It comes down to whatever it is, follow the guidelines. So,
Okay. Oh,
I mean, how will they? And if you feel like the best way to show what you're doing is through video.
Okay.
For instance, a very close friend of mine she's considered a painter, but her paintings are kinetic, and they don't really show well just there, a photograph. You need to, they're in parts, and they move, and they make weird little sounds. They're these strange, they're just amazing if you see them as, they're more like sculptures, but moving sculptures. So when she applies for something, she's like looking through this thing, it's like, well, I don't see any, they say send JPEGs, send photographs. Well, my work doesn't show up in so she has to contact those people and say, can I show a video?
But you also do not want to send a 20-minute video.
No.
They have a stack of 500 applications.
People have short attention spans. And also, I get this question a lot. Is it better, they say to submit a film clip no longer than 2 minutes. Now, I've got a great one that's 20. I think it's better if I send that because it's more likely to show what I'm like, no. Because they will stop it at 2 minutes.
Right.
They will just stop it. So read give them what they ask for and give the best possible thing, and ask the authorities. There are humans behind. If you have a question, we live in a world where people are doing all kinds of bizarre things that they never did before, and and media will continue to change. So there's that. By the way, I forgot to mention this. A lot of artists I know are not in academia, and they don't think to look in university databases, and they don't think to look Google blah 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 library fellowship. Okay, for instance, I think it's Western Michigan University. I think Yale has a good one. There are different databases where, I found an incredible grant, fellowship for someone for India to live there 6 months, all expenses paid, and a huge stipend. And it wasn't public. They were encouraging people out. It was for people in academia and outside of academia, and so it wasn't publicized anywhere but in a university database. So. Yes.
We just have one more. We're about to run out of time.
I have a project I'm interested in.
You speak a little.
I have a project I'm interested in doing that may be considered romantic and cliche, but nevertheless I feel it's important. I'm interested in what's happening. That the Bureau of Land Management is eradicating wild mustangs from the public lands right now.
That's not cliche.
Well, a lot of photographers are doing this, and of course, there's been artists who have painted wild horses before and that kind of thing. But how can I get some funding to do a project like that?
And you want to photograph them?
No, I am a painter and a sculptor.
Okay.
So I'd like to go and photograph them in person and maybe,
So, and where are they located?
They're in various parts of the West, in Nevada and Colorado, different places on public lands. And they're being eradicated right now in favor of sheep, cattle, oil wells, and gas.
Okay, so I would start with thinking, what are the things related to this? Environmental, site-specific, ecological, you know, really, basically, it comes down to this.
Now saying they're not a native species, so therefore that's okay to.
Doesn't matter. I think, you know, go different routes. Do a search for, you know, think of all the words associated with this project and put the word grant or fellowship after it, okay? And then also go back to think about who you are. Okay, maybe there's a grant out there for women doing this thing. Environmental or conservation artists, grants, women, you know, put everything possible in think who you are, what it is you want to do. And contact also, if you are trying to target, this is a very specific thing you're doing. So you want to also contact the organizations that are funding the conservation efforts for those horses. Perhaps there's a creative arts element in those organizations as well. And if there isn't, they might be open to donating money. I've heard this before about certain you know, and maybe there's another way there's a way to partner with another organization, and anyone can think about this. You know, you've got a project that's a little, maybe it's tied to an oral history project, or it's tied to some specific place. And you see, look at all those organizations that help fund to preserve this animal, this place, whatever, these people, and partner with other organizations. Maybe there's sometimes there are grants out there, but you have to be part of a. Sometimes there are great grants out there, and they're for nonprofit organizations. And you can go to a nonprofit organization and say, can I partner with you? Will you be the umbrella organization for what I want to do? And they will help. If they're open to that, they will be your kind of partner. And they will write the grant, you will help them, and it helps them too, because it shows that they're doing this kind of this interesting thing. So you can partner with another institution. So there are grants out there for nonprofits that you might not even think about. They're doing something that you are interested in, but you know. Okay?
So there are some people now that are doing documentary films about what's happening, things like that, so like contact them and see what they.
And I've also, some ecological arts projects I've heard about, people have connected with the Native American communities because they have some of them have a similar interest in so there's all kinds of avenues. My point about all this is, you know, don't think in a straight line. Really just think of who you are, what you do, and what you want, and figure the hell how to get it. Really dream the impossible. Okay, one more question and then you, okay, two more questions. You and you.
Not a question.
Okay.
I think everyone will find this interesting. I know you're going to be going to Kansas City, Missouri Library tomorrow, downtown. Google it. I don't know the address. It starts at 6. The reception starts at 6 and 7. Now, the reception is afterwards. This one, the reception is before. The talk is at 6:30. They also photograph these and they put them on the internet about 2 weeks afterwards. So if you cannot attend, go to the library's website 2 weeks from now and you will see her.
You should be my publicist. I love you.
I give you credit for a song.
Okay, I'm gonna take 2 more questions and okay, 3, and then I'm gonna stop it. Because, is that okay? So you, and then you can bombard me out there while I have a snack. Okay, you.
How does crowdfunding fit into the grant writing process you sort of talked about saying, answering yes, showing that you're hustling other money. Are you applying to other grants? Does crowdfunding, how does that look in that context? Or how does it look in the income portion of the budget? Is there?
I think anything, I think most places now, I mean, everybody knows about crowdfunding, the institutions, and I think that showing you're resourceful just helps. I plan to do a crowdsourcing, campaign. I plan to apply for a local arts council grant. I apply, blah, 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 blah. So I think it's fine. I mean, unless it's like a super snooty organization. I think like for the Fulbright, for something that's like really institutional, like a Fulbright, I'm not sure it would help you or hinder you, but I don't know if I'd mention it. That's a question you might want to contact the Fulbright office. And Fulbrights, by the way, I'll throw this out there, you do not have to be a student or a professor to get one. If you are, I think it's 3 years out of graduate school, or 3 to 5 years just doing your thing, whether or not you have a graduate degree or not, you are considered an independent scholar. As in, you could be a painter, but you're considered an independent scholar. Okay, there's also something called the Fulbright Specialists grants, and they're for about 3 weeks to 4 weeks. And basically, you can go to another country and you do like a couple workshops, and the rest of the time you do your thing, and you connect with the community. They're short term. They give you a nice chunk of money, and it's great. Okay, so you, and then you. Okay.
Yeah, when you were talking to her about your project, it reminded me of something that you haven't really talked about, and that's fiscal sponsorship. Do you deal with that at all? Or, I mean, I know we've had workshops in Kansas City about that, and that's, you know what that's about, fiscal sponsorship?
I'm not, in what sense?
I'm sorry?
In what sense are you talking
about?
about?
If someone, like you're saying, maybe partnering with a nonprofit, fiscal sponsorship generally we're working with an organization that they are a nonprofit, and that you can, get money, and that's sort of funneled through their organization as a nonprofit from sources that normally don't grant to
Individuals.
Nonprofit, yeah, individuals. Right, but I didn't know if you had come up, could speak about that, or you know what I'm saying?
I know mostly about individual grants and fellowships, but like I just said a little while back, I do know there are some organizations that yeah, I mean, like I have a project I want to, this is one example, there's a project I want to do where I want to curate put together basically throw some printmakers together and some poets in our area, because I live in an area where there's an incredible literary area as well as a sort of great book arts and printmaking area. And I want to put together a portfolio and see if I can fund that somehow, that print, make a limited edition, et cetera. So there's an organization that I've been talking to that's a nonprofit organization that might be interested in partnering with me. And then everybody sort of I would imagine they would get some kind of, if this portfolio is sold, I would imagine they would get some kind of percentage, et cetera, et cetera. So that's, I mean, I know that those things are possible. I just don't, and I know people have done them, but I know mostly about individual grants and fellowships. But like I said before, don't discount connecting with a nonprofit organization and doing something together with them. Yes.
Who was the lady that was talking? The horses, I couldn't see who it was, okay. One thought that came to me is that you can partner with organizations that work with those types of animals, and you can take photographs of the animals, and then proceeds, or part of the proceeds, are donated to the cause.
Yeah, I just had that thought myself before.
I've done that before. And the the other thing that I really want you to understand is that if this is your life purpose and this is what you're supposed to do, then you need to see that as already done. And people will help you to do that.
That's great.
Just get clear on what you want and you will have it. It will chase you and people will help you.
If you wake up in the middle of the night, I mean, I always tell people, don't give up your day job. But if you're waking up in the middle of the night with your brain exploding, and you're like a pit bull with a piece of raw meat with this idea, and you've been carrying it around for a long time, you just figure out how to do it, honey. You just track that money down, because somebody's going to give it to you. Really believe in it. And you're welcome. Anyway. Thank you, guys.